Hello, everyone, and welcome to a filmed recording of doing flat square stitch. Um, I first want to acknowledge that I'm on the unceded traditional territory of the Lheidli peoples. Most of my mentorship opportunities have happened here. I've learned how to be an artist and exist in this world on this territory, and so I'm eternally grateful for being here. And so myself, my name is Jean-Baptiste. My traditional name is Kihiu Mahikana Diogenesquiu, which translates to equal spare woman. I use any and all pronouns. I belong to the Wet'suwet'en Nation and the Luxiliu clan on my mother's side, and on my adoptive family side, we are Italian and German. I'm doing this workshop because in July I was artist in residence at Omineca Arts Centre, and I did host a live workshop, but I really wanted to take an opportunity to film something, put it up on Facebook, Instagram, so that everyone would have an opportunity to, engage with beadwork and learn alongside um, everyone else. And another part of my role is I am an ambassador for BC Cultures Days, um, which is a really cool opportunity where I'm going to be hosting a medicine bag making workshop in late September. Also, that's going to be hosted at Omineca Arts Centre. So definitely stay tuned for that information. Um, yeah, and so the activity that we're going to be doing is learning how to do a flat square stitch. Now, here are some examples that you can see on the lower right. Let's see if this is going to focus. There we go. So this is a really simple stitch. I've been doing a lot of pride pins with it, and the piece that I like about flat square stitch is it's really malleable. It really feels like fabric. It's just a really simple way of doing beadwork, and it's also really, really versatile. Like, you can use this stitch to make like beaded handles or pins or larger pieces even. It's definitely all within the realms of possibility. So really, I invite you to think about, and this is going to be focused on doing pride pins, but I really want you to focus and think about, like, if you were going to make a pride pin, what is something that's representative of you? What is colors that you would want to use and engage with? I definitely would invite you to, explore that. Now, for supplies, you can see my mat is already set up. So what we're going to be beading on is a beading mat. Now, this is specifically a beading mat. You can buy it online mostly. I don't know if a lot of places in Prince George do have them. Um, but, as with the miracles of Amazon and terrible capitalism, we can get these things virtually. But if you don't want to engage with that, which also totally understandable, you can get really any type of wool. What you're going to be looking for is a bit of like a soft, fluffy, bit of a coarser surface so that it keeps your beads, your thread, all of your stuff in place. That's the purpose of it. Now, I'm also going to be using thread. Here's my needle. And the needles that I'm going to be using, let's see if we can so yeah, needle. It's super, super tiny. And you can use, generally I use pony needles out of, because usually that's what's being sold, either in size 10 or size 12 is what works. And here we have size B nymo thread. Now let's see if we can also get that to focus in on that. But yeah, so as you can see, it's really, really thin. It also is white in color, but generally when you use it, it does kind of come out to be more of a clear, because yeah, it's so thin. Now, when it comes to beads, we have size 10 beads, and they usually come in little packages that look like this. Here you go. You can see opaque orange red, size 10. You can also see that I generally source my beads from Topaz Beads, which is local to Prince George, but if you're not located in Prince George, you're able to find these elsewhere. Now, also, because these are pride pins that we're going to be working with, here is a safety pin. Here's a little safety pin. It's the same size as these. Now, the max number of columns that you're really able to use with this size is 9, but you can get them bigger, smaller. Really, it's up to the sizing that feels good for you. Now to get us started, also as you can see probably on my mat, it can get a little bit messy. I love putting a lot of things on my mat just because it's inspiration, or as you can see, like used needles that I like to pull from. You know, personally, I like some well-used needles because they conform to the shape of my fingers, and personally, I really like using them a lot better. So as we get started, what we're going to do is we are going to thread our needle. And as you can see, it's already threaded. And generally the length of thread that you're going to want to use, I usually go by arm length, and or like arm flourish. you know. So I have these giant spools of thread that I use, and so yeah, there you go. As you can see, it is nymo beaded thread, or sorry, nymo thread, size B. And so this is the size of thread that will fit through size 10 beads. And so to get us started, so you have your thread, it's like an arm flourish long, and what you're going to want to do is start with your safety pin. And I definitely want to make a differentiation of so we have like the sharp pointy end, and we have the end that is embedded. So we have like, there's no sharp pointy over here. All of it is just safety pin. We are not going to be beading on the sharp end. So as you can see, with one that's already been completed, is we want to bead along the bottom part of it. And the reason for that is like, the pointy end is obviously going to be going into your shirt, and so it's just easier aesthetically and much prettier. So we're going to get this, we're going to close it up, we're going to completely ignore this side, we are not going to use it whatsoever. Now we have the end of our thread, and all we're going to do, we're going to take it, and we are going to knot it. I'm also left-handed, so primarily I do things left-handedly. If you are not left-handed, what you're probably going to want to do is do everything that I do in the exact opposite. So generally I work from right to left because I'm left-handed. So like if you are right-handed, what you're going to want to do is your work is going to look like this, and it is going to be going from left to right. But because of just because the way that my hands work, I go from right to left. So yeah, be mindful of that, and if you're right-handed, just do the exact opposite of me. So here we go, we have one knot, and because I want this to be a little bit secure, you can definitely just do one knot. But for me today, I'm going to be doing two, just to make sure everything's kind of secure. So here we have our beaded needle. Also for each of the colors, I have all my colors laid out at the top here. So we're going to do not necessarily the most traditional kind of pride flag. We are going to be including brown and black. With the newest pride flags is they're inclusive of the trans colors, inclusive of black and brown, indicative of BIPOC community. But unfortunately, because it's such a complex design, I'm not going to replicate it here. Not to say that it isn't necessarily easy to do. This is just for ease of what we're hoping to accomplish today. Really, today it's teaching you about the technique so that you're able to go and do it and explore on your own. All right, so and then for the size of it, generally, because I've already done this design before, so it is 8 columns long and then 10 beads deep, and it creates kind of like this nice square shape. So what I'm going to do, first row, we are going to be holding the safety pin in between our thumb and forefinger. It's also nice if you get that tiny little tail, if you hold it in there as well, so that way it's not flying about. And you kind of want to push it towards the end of your piece. So here we go, we're going to pick up 10. Just gonna pull it. We're gonna pull it all the way through. And congratulations, look at that, we have our first row done. Perfect. And it is going to get more complicated from here. So And as we go through this, you're definitely going to want to keep an eye on where I keep my thumb and my pointer finger, because this is on my right hand, because that is how the beads are going to be anchored. And I've kind of learned this over time, of like, this is kind of the best way to, because you see it's like flimsy, it's like you can do whatever you want with it, but you'll kind of figure out what are the ways that you can hold on to your beadwork so that it feels secure. Because really, like, first row is super easy, second row is a lot more difficult because there is not a lot of structure. All right, so here I'm just holding my thread. What I'm doing is I'm actually just bracing it with my ring finger against my middle finger, and that's just to kind of keep this shape here. So I am going to pick up orange, which is the first color of my second row, and what I'm going to do is, so the thread is coming out the top here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my needle from the bottom of the bead to the top so that it's still going in the same direction as the thread, and pulling. I am pulling, I'm keeping the thread kind of to the side. And usually when I do this, I almost put like the whole row in between my fingers, just because it keeps it locked and secured. But I'm going to try and not do that, just so everyone can kind of see what's happening. Oh, stuck on the top of my finger. All right. So we want to pull that tight. So we pull it tight, and there we go. We have the first bead of our second row. So what you're going to notice is that we have our thread still going out the top of the red bead in the first row. So to keep going with our beadwork, what we're going to do is put our needle from the top to the bottom of the orange bead. We're to do that, hold it, and then pull it through. And so this is what it should look like. So with the first bead of the second row, the thread will be coming out of the bottom of the bead and going towards the safety pin. All right, so then we are going to go over to the second bead, and here we go. So if you just get all the thread and everything all together. So here we go. So as you'll notice, I'm going to put most of the red beads and the safety pin and lock it in between my thumb and my forefinger, just to keep it steady. And what I'm going to do is I have my second bead on here already, and we're going to do the same thing as we did in the first. We are going to, from the second bead, we're going to go from the bottom to the top. And we're going to pull it through. And so what it looks like at this stage is it's kind of starting to take shape. As you'll see, the thread is coming out, well, once again, the first row. And, you know, it's kind of forming a bit of a square. But what we want is for the thread to, once again, go through the orange bead. So there we go. We have that. So we have the thread coming out of the second bead, second red bead in the first row. And we want to bring the thread over, and I'm going to lock that with my ring finger and press it against this thumb just so the thread stays taut. And I'm going to go through the top of the orange bead into the bottom. And we're just going to pull. We're going to pull it, and it creates this really super cute little square. Now, if you are a bit of a visual learner like me, let's bring this one back because this is our example. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building this row by row, and we're going to be going downwards. So per row, we're going to be focusing on that specific color, and what you're doing is you're weaving. You're going to be weaving the beads in amongst each other so that you get this structure. All right, and so really, essentially, that's the technique. Is all you do is you pick up a bead, and because we're working on the third bead, we're going to be third bead on the second row. We're going to be putting that on our needle, and we're going to build that off of the third bead in the first row. So we're going to go from bottom to top, pull it through, going to put the thread over, lock it, and pull the thread through again. So all we're doing is, it's like we're building this this pin sideways. We're building the width of it. All right, so here is the fourth bead, and what we're gonna do. So once again, the most of the first row and the safety pin are locked in between my thumb and my index finger. And what we're going to do is we're going to go from the bottom to the top of the fourth bead, pull it through, bring the thread over, lock it, and then go from top to bottom. All right, and essentially what you're going to want to do is just keep repeating that process. And it's also really important to note that, and also like if this is like, because it's kind of going all over the place and you can kind of see that I'm struggling to hold it, is feel free to just like hold whatever pieces are getting kind of haywire. Sometimes you got to take your pointer finger and just like hold the stuff that's already been beaded so it doesn't go everywhere. And yeah, so the more that you practice and the more that you do it, really you'll kind of learn where it feels good to hold your fingers, and how it feels good to how the beadwork should be held, in order to create the right amount of tension so that you can kind of keep working with it. And also, as you can see, the beading is kind of loose, like it's kind of loose, and don't worry about that right now. It's completely okay. It will, this is just the first part of the process. So as you can see, picked up another bead going from the bottom to the top of the first row. Looping it over, holding it down, and going from top to bottom again. And so the cool thing about flat stitch beading is it is the same technique over and over and over again. So for the entire time that you're going to be working on this, you are going to be doing the exact same technique, and it gives you a lot more opportunities to just practice it. So thread over, lock it, and from the top to the bottom. And also just be mindful, it's super easy for this thread to kind of go all over the place. Something that I've seen happen quite often is like if you pull it, it can get caught on, like, here, I'll see if I can simulate it. It'll get like caught on the top. And as you can see, like, it's super easy to kind of go all over the place. So just be mindful of your thread, see where it's going, see if it's going where it's supposed to be going. And also, if you mess up, it's totally okay. It's the point of this is it's meant to be a learning process. Well, so yeah, pull it over. There we go. So we're almost done the second row. You're so close. We are so close. We have 2 more beads, which will not take too long to do. Okay, so picked up a bead. We're going from the bottom to the top, pulling it through. We are going to bring the thread over. Going to put the needle from the top to the bottom of the new row, pull it. Nope. Oh, here we go. Yeah, here's a perfect example. So as you can see, the thread is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's actually kind of like looped around the beadwork, and this happens so often. So the way to solve it, and it's super simple, is you take your needle, you put it under the thread, and you pull it. So that way, it becomes big enough, it comes back over the beadwork, and then you just pull it through. So that will happen quite a bit. And you know, it's okay. It's something that is a super simple fix. So here we have our last bead. What we're going to do is we are going to once again put our needle from the bottom of the red bead to the top, pull through, and see how it's starting to fall just so nice. It's starting to go into place. You'll want to put the thread in between your middle finger and your pointer finger, however your hand is laying at the moment, and you'll want to put the needle from the top of the orange bead to the bottom. Oh, see, here we go. Here we go again. It's looping around the beadwork. So we just want to make it a little bit bigger, pull it around to the right side, and oh, pull it. There you go. There you go. It wanted to be a little bit tricky, but all right. And so congratulations. What we have is our first 2 rows done. So from here, it actually is probably going to go pretty quickly. And so, like I said before, it's kind of loose. It's going to be it's going to be super loose. It's going to probably look a little bit janky, which also is completely fine, because what we're going to do is, so we have the thread coming out the bottom of the orange row, the second row. And so what we're going to want to do is to take the let me see if I'm doing this correctly. Yep. So we are going to want to take your needle, put it from the bottom of the red, and we're going to go up through this entire row. Okay, so as you can see, from the bottom to the top, the needle is going to be going through the top away from the safety pin. And then you're just going to want to pull that through. And this is a great place where you just need to trust the process. Trust the process, because it is going to look more janky by the end of it. And as you can see here at the bottom, like our tail thread is kind of like looped into it. Just go back through, pull it out. And here you go. We're just gonna hold that thread, hold that tail thread. See if I can actually get a hold of it. Ugh, it's so little. Okay, we're gonna go hold that over there. So hopefully it's not going to get in the way anymore. So as you can see, the first row is looking a lot tighter, a lot straighter, and then on the right hand side, the second row is, there we go, you can see that a little bit better, is looking really, really loose, and it's looking almost fanned out compared to the first row. So we have our thread coming out the end of the red row, the first row. And what we're going to want to do is we are going to take our needle, go from the top of the second row, so through the first orange bead, and we're going to want to go through all of the orange beads. See, and as you can see, having really malleable hand postures is like kind of super important when you do this kind of work, because you know it's a lot of holding. Oh no, okay, we're gonna just flip that back over. All right, and so what I'm doing to kind of hold everything in place is I'm holding my beadwork with my right hand between my thumb and my middle finger, or you can also do it with like your index finger, whatever feels better for you. So we have our needle through the entire row. And also, if you are kind of new and not feeling really sure about the process, what you're going to do is you want to kind of flip it around and make sure that your needle is going through all of the beads, because if not, you're gonna have a lot of different kind of pulls. So if you do this and say skip a bead, and go through like that, you see like over here there's going to be a bit of a weird pull. So what you're going to want to do is just make sure that your needle is going through all of the beads, and you can do that just by like kind of flipping it around. Yeah, so you're going to want to pull all the way through, and what we have is our needle on our thread coming out the bottom. You want to loop it around the safety pin, pull it through, and come back up to the top. Go back through your orange. Yeah, go back through the orange row. So what you're doing is you're just creating a loop so that the orange row is now connected to the safety pin here. And once again, our little tail thread is getting in the way. It's just deciding that it wants to be center of attention, but we are going to pull it back off to the side. All right, there we go. So here we can see we have our first 2 rows done. And this is going to start feeling really secure. As you can see, it kind of isn't wiggling as much. It doesn't have the same amount of flexibility as it did before we went through it, because really what those rows do is create reinforcement. Now I'm going to really quickly go through the rest of the rows just to, yeah, illustrate how it can be done. So, and also because this is now like reinforced, it's a lot easier to work with. So really, like, the first 2 rows do kind of suck, especially if you're just learning how to do it. But as soon as you get past the first 2 rows, it's pretty easy peasy from there. So I have 3rd row, first color, yellow. What I'm going to do is the thread is coming out the top. I'm going to put my needle at the bottom of the orange, come through the top, and create my first bead. And as you can see, it's lining up fairly perfectly, which is super, super pretty. Love it. Makes my life also a lot easier. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to take our needle, go from the top to the bottom, and pull it. And so it's looking a little bit loose, just pull it. Pull the thread, it will get tighter. Now take the second bead, go from the bottom to the top of the second orange bead, pull it through, and then go from the top to the bottom of the second yellow bead. All that's doing is that is securing it in place. And if you're noticing that the yellow bead is getting a little bit too far away, you're just going to want to pull, not this side because this side is connected to the needle, but the side of the thread that is connected to the rest of the beadwork, just give a little bit of a pull. What that's going to do is it's going to tighten this up. So the yellow thread will get closer and be a little bit more manageable. Right, so we're just going to keep going. And like I said before, it really is the same technique over and over and over again. So really it is not necessarily too complicated. And so here we're coming across another really common issue is we have the thread being looped around the safety pin. And, you know, much like the other issues that you saw, the way to solve it is you pull it, you get more room, and then you just unloop it. And pull it over, thread over, needle from top to bottom, and pull. Now, if you watch lots of different beaders, they will have different techniques for the ways that they hold their beadwork, and really that just comes with practice. That just comes with time. Here we go. So we're putting the thread over, locking it in between my 2 fingers, pulling. And so yeah, for the next, probably this row and the next row, what I'm probably going to do it a little bit more in silence, just because, you know, I have been talking a lot, and really there isn't much more that I can say about the technique or how to do it. And as you can see, like, it probably will be more useful for folks to just kind of watch me do it. And if anything like new or interesting comes up, I'll definitely like identify it for you. But, you know, just I during this next little bit, I would definitely suggest like keeping an eye on my hands, on my fingers, the way that they are, like, what are they holding, why are they holding it, and, you know, if I make any mistakes, like if things get wrapped around things, how does that look, how do I fix it? And so I learned beadwork not necessarily through tutorials like this. Really, it was through trying, watching my mentors, Lynette LaFontaine, Shalane Pauls, and you can find them on social media. Lynette LaFontaine at Otepemisawak Artist on Instagram, and Shalane Pauls at Wise Woman Creations. And so the way that I learned beadwork was through watching them. And if I made any mistakes, I would ask them, but really it was pretty casual. And so although we can't perfectly do that in person because, obviously this is a video, definitely feel free to just watch, enjoy, and see if there's anything that you notice about my work that works for you or doesn't. Because, as we develop our own practice, we develop our own techniques, our own ways of holding the needle and thread, our own ways of engaging with this art form. Right, so here we go, end of the third row, and we're going to go from the bottom to the top. So from the direction of the side that is closest to the safety pin. So we're going to go needle at the bottom, go all the way to the top. It can get a little bit squishy, so because these are really, really tiny. These are tiny, tiny little. Here, I'll see if I can. Maybe let's try with a green. So as you can see, that little hole is wicked tiny. The more thread that you put through it, the harder it is to put your needle through because that's getting filled. So, sometimes it can be really hard to push the needle through, in which case if it does become really, really difficult, I suggest getting pliers, and you'll be able to put your pliers at the top of your needle and then just pulling it through. It makes it a lot easier. It also is more likely to damage your needle and make it really crooked, but for me that isn't something I necessarily worry too much about. So here we go. As you can see, we went through the orange row, the thread is coming out the top, and we're going to want to take the needle, go from the top of the yellow row, put it through the row, out the bottom. And we are going to put our needle under the safety pin and go back up through the last row that you did. No? Now what happened here? Oh, great. Look at that. Another great learning opportunity. So this is something that also happens quite a bit, is sometimes your thread will just like do its own thing. It's a lot. Thread is a lot to manage. And that usually is a place where I mess up the most. So when it comes to this, there is no shame in taking your needle off the thread. There's my needle. Here it is. And I'm just going to pull it through and pull it back through the row. And I'm just going to redo it. So here we go. We're going to get that all out. And we're going to rethread the needle. And the way that I usually thread, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see, because it is wicked tiny. We're using really wicked tiny materials here. So tiny little bit of thread nudged between my thumb and index finger. We're gonna kind of want to squeeze that, so there's just like a tiny little piece sticking out, and we're going to take our needle. Also doing this on camera is like really difficult because usually I have it like right up next to my face, but here I'm looking at it through a screen. So hopefully this goes well. So yeah, you're gonna want to position the eye of the needle just kind of right above it. Just kind of want to squish it and take a couple tries. And there you go. There you go. There you go. See, right through. You're going to want to pull, grab the end, and just pull it. Okay, so we are going to want to redo that row. So we are going to hold it between, so the beadwork and the end of the safety pin, we're going to hold it between our index and our thumb to keep it steady with our needle and thread. What we are going to do is we're going to take it loop it under, loop it under the bar. And this time, because I want to make sure that I don't make that mistake again, I am just going to pull it tight, make sure that it's looping around the part of the safety pin that it's meant to, and then going back up and through that row once again. So definitely checking to make sure that it's not missing any beads, sweet, hold it, pull it through. Dun, 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 we have our third row done. So we're going to go another green row, pull out first bead of the green row, fourth row, go from the bottom to the top of the yellow row. We're going to pull it. Great. So we are going to go from the top to the bottom of the green bead, pull it through. And we're going to keep going. So bottom to the top of the yellow. Once again, anchoring my thread. So as you can see, this is how it's currently being anchored between my pointer and middle finger. Picking up third bead, go from the bottom to the top of the third yellow bead. And here it's, and something that I'm noticing even about my own practice that is probably good to articulate for you guys, is here you can see that it's like looping around the safety pin. Just pull your thread to the back. And if it's easier to pull your thread to the back and hold it in amongst your fingers, you know, do it. Do whatever works. Now when it comes to, like, your beads can kind of sit kind of funky, and what you're going to see is like the thread is actually getting looped around the bead. So you just want to go put in your needle, pull it out, and then pull it tight again to make sure it's sitting correctly. Okay, so I think this is going to be the final row that I'm going to do. Just this is an introduction to how to do the process. And this is the technique. You're just going to do this over and over and over again. Usually it takes, if you are well practiced, like within an hour to do, but like if you're just learning, take some time. But yeah, so now you have an understanding of how the technique works. And I'll also be posting pictures of the final products within the comments, or within the post itself, I'm not sure. But, you know, you'll definitely see how it can look in the end. Okay, we are almost done this green row. Perfect. Oh, now, also if it's just not sitting correctly, just kind of move the bead to where you want it to sit. Okay, so we are at the end of the green row. So we are going to do like all the other ones. We're going to go back up through the yellow row. And see, it's already starting to get a little bit tricksy, a little bit tough to get through. Okay, and so we are up at the top of the yellow row. Now we're going to want to go down through the green row. Now we are going to pretend, we're just going to pretend that that this piece looks like this. Oh my gosh, look at that, we're all done. Yay, this is fantastic, it looks beautiful. What we're going to do is we are going to have the thread, we're going to do the same thing. And this is how you finish this piece. Is you have your thread, you're going to loop it around the bottom. So you have that loop. So the beadwork is connected to the safety pin. You're going to pull it tight. Now you're also going to probably just bring the little tail thread. This little dude is just going to like hang out of the way because it definitely wants to be all up in there. So we have our thread. We have a loop around the safety pin, as you can see. And you're going to want to go up through the first, like, I don't know, a couple beads. This is 10 beads long, so probably go up to, let's say, like maybe 6. Let's say 6. There's a couple different ways that you can finish it off. So we have it up here. What you're going to want to do is put your needle. So what we're going to do is we are going to make a knot. So, and the way that you do that is like we said before, there's so many threads going through each of these beads. Is in this final row, what we're going to do is we're going to, just like if you look in between, if you can, I wonder if this can go that high def. All right, so if you kind of like pull it apart, you see there's lots of different little threads in there that are connecting all the beads together. So what you're going to want to do is you can pick out one or both or all, just kind of pick a bunch of threads. You can also just go through the whole row. And if you're just starting, that might be easier. So you're going to want to pull it through, and it's going to create this little loop on the left hand side. Create a loop. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to get your needle, put it through the loop, and pull it. What that's going to do is create a knot. Just kind of pull it, make sure it's secure. Look at that little knot, super cute. You go take your scissors and cut your thread really close, and then you can take a lighter and burn it. Another way that you can finish it off, I'm just going to take the needle off. I'm going to undo this knot. Unless the knot doesn't want to be undone. You know what? It looks like the knot does not want to be undone, which is totally okay. So the other way that you would do this is after you make your loop at the bottom of the green row, of your final row, as you go, you make a knot before you go up through the beads, and then you come out after like 4 or 5 beads, and then you go and snip it there. So there's a few different ways to finish it off. Really, it's up to your comfort level. Yeah, and just kind of the aesthetic that you're hoping for. And then when it comes to this tail bead, what you're going to want to do is you take your needle, you go, oh, because it's a bit of like a tiny itty bitty little tail thread, is you put your needle most of the way through or all the way through your initial row. You take your tail thread and you put it into the eye of the needle, pull through a little bit. So here we have just like a really itty bitty little thread going through it. Hold your beadwork and pull it through. So what you're doing is you're taking your thread and you're embedding your tail thread into the rest of the beadwork. And from there, what you get, we're just gonna cut this close. And then, yeah, that little piece you can just burn off with a lighter. So that generally, really quickly, really simply, is how you do flat stitch beadwork. And feel free to continue on, complete the rest of your pin. Like I said, out of interest of time and also like capacity for Facebook to handle larger videos, I wanted to cut it off just after there, but hopefully give enough information that you're able to do your own piece. So if you do your own pin, definitely feel free to put pictures of it in the comments. I would really love to see your work. And like I said, it's really flexible to do different kinds of flags, whether that be the trans flag, whether that be the pride colors, whether that include newer flags of like BIPOC community, whether it's for the ace community or non-binary community. Like really, the options are yours. So yeah, thank you for tuning in and joining me. I hope that this project goes really well for you. And if you have any questions, feel free to also put them in the comments. Hopefully I'll be able to respond to them as soon as I can, but also feel free to check me out on my personal social media pages. I have a Facebook page called Kahoo Journeys. I don't use it too much, so definitely don't check that out. But I am most active on my Instagram page, which is at Kahoo Designs. So that is at KIHEWDESIGNS. And so, yeah, definitely feel free to check me out on Instagram. Also, feel free to check out Omineca Arts Centre on Facebook, and I believe they also have Instagram, and also BC Culture Days, which is at BC Culture Days, spelt the way that it sounds, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And also stay tuned for upcoming artisan residencies, group shows, and the medicine bag making workshop, which is going to be happening at the end of September at Omineca, which is going to be hosted by me. So, details of that are going to be coming out fairly soon, hopefully. So definitely stay tuned to all of those social media spaces to stay up to date with things that are happening in your community. All right, thank you so much. And once again, this is Jean-Baptiste, otherwise known as Kahoo Maikana Diogenes Quiyu with Kahoo Designs. And yeah, thank you so much for attending.